for good, shaping the fate. Investors and dreamers open the gate. Supercross stands loud, proud and true, building tomorrow for me and you.
Welcome, everyone. I am so excited. We have an extraordinary guest with us today, Kerry David, a filmmaker who's working on an exciting new project that is open to investment on WeFunder, is here with us. You don't want to miss this opportunity. Stick around. This is going to be a great conversation. Kerry, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Devin. I have been so looking forward to chatting with you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, I just couldn't be happier to have you here. You're working on a project that's really, like so many good documentaries, it's kind of it's tragic, really. It's sad. But I wanted to maybe put off our discussion of that for just a minute so we can talk about some of the other cool things you've done. You are a very accomplished filmmaker. This is not a school project. This is not your first rodeo. You're like the real deal. Tell us a little bit about your filmmaking career up to this point.
Well, thank you for that. That's very kind of you to say. I am a filmmaker. I do identify as a career filmmaker. I started my career out actually at Paramount Pictures in business affairs, almost by accident, and ended up learning about the contract side of filmmaking for 3 years, which was phenomenal to come from a studio background and see all that information. I was then introduced to the person who ran Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman's company, and they asked me to come work for them. And so I was able to go and spend 3 years working with Tom and Nick on their projects around the world, and I learned the practical side of filmmaking. So for me, that was film school. 3 years doing the admin at Paramount Pictures, 3 years with Tom and Nicole. And I left Tom and Nicole to start my own production company. And the first project that I optioned was a little script called Agent Cody Banks, which you might have heard of. So I came out of the gates with a franchise, and I do know how lucky I was. Although I did spend a year developing it with the writer. And then I just progressed, and it was, one film after the other, and you learn so much on every single film. And several years ago, I was approached by Bill Coors, the brewing titan, to make his documentary that would be his legacy. And I was asked to direct it, which was, I'd never directed before. And I just said yes, because I do tend to lean into things that scare me. And the next thing I know, I'm now on my third feature film, my third feature documentary.
Wow. A lot of the footage that we're sharing today as we chat is from some of your work around poaching. You've had some successes, I think.
We have, actually. So that film, it's so great to see the guys again. We were looking for a pangolin at that point. We've been looking for it for 48 hours and we never did find it, but it was an adventure. I was introduced to the commercial poaching industry at a fundraiser in Los Angeles. And it was back when drones were first being used to shoot amazing footage. So I was seeing incredibly beautiful 4K footage, but it was showing devastating images and imagery. And I mean, I really was shocked and traumatized, traumatized, strong word, but I was deeply shocked enough to go home and go on the internet and say, this can't be true. Maybe that was pushing it. And if anything, I found out that the commercial poaching trade was worse than was being portrayed, multi-billion-dollar industry. And we were losing some of these iconic animals. Like that rhino right there is 2-ton rhino. And he came up to the side of the Jeep there, and look at Petra now. That is a wild rhino. That is not domesticated. And the reason he allows her to be there is because she saved his life as a tiny orphaned rhino. And so she said to we were a small crew, and she says, don't get out of the truck. Like any of us were going to get out of a truck next to a 2-ton rhino. But it was fascinating. And so seeing that downtown led to me realizing, which happened on Open Secret, the project I'm right now, we're challenged with the same thing, which is so easy to look away from difficult subjects. But at some point it lands and you think to yourself, I can no longer look away because I know, and you're in denial, which means therefore it's not denial anymore. You're aware of it. But then I was challenged with well, I'm just a filmmaker. What can I add to the conversation? How can I help? But that started the machinations going in my brain. There must be something I can do. So I started a nonprofit. It's called Over and Above Africa. And the first thing I did was I flew to Africa to get on the land and have sort of, I didn't ever want to come back and say, this is what they think. I wanted to be a conduit and amplify the voices that were there. In which case I wanted to learn about the poaching industry. And so we were invited to go out with the anti-poaching unit on foot. And they cover 17 kilometers a day, the most rugged terrain. And while we were walking with them, we were learning about how the challenges that they were facing. And I was looking at their boots and thinking, you know, I mean, we had top of the line boots for like a 2-week trip, and theirs were falling off, and yet they were doing such important work. So the first thing we did when we came home was we did a fundraiser, Boots for Rangers. So we gave every single person, every single ranger at that game reserve, pair of boots. We had more money, so we gave them the camels for, you know, and we started equipping them. So in terms of that, I realized there's a film here. I came back and I did a short film about it, because everything that we raise funds for, we film that project, make a little mini documentary so that people who donate can actually see where their money went and they can feel proud that they did something. And so I knew I had to make a film about it, but there've been so many films in and around that world. I didn't want to make just another one. And I was watching, I think the film was Icarus. I was at the Landmark Theater in Los Angeles, and the credits were, I loved it. It was a fantastic documentary. But as the credits were rolling, it was just man, 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 man. I'm like, did they have no women on this crew at all? And it just hit me. Oh, I can tell this story through the female lens. As a female, to go out there must be women working on the front line of the poaching war. What if I was to find them where they were and come at it from that perspective and have them tell me what it's like from their viewpoint, which is what I did. And I was lucky enough to have just 3 women lined up when I went to Africa, because my thought process was, if I'm authentic and if I show them that I'm here to do what I say I'm going to do, they'll introduce me to more women, which is a much better way to get, I think, or, you know, authorized to go out there and film. And that's what we did. And we shot for a year. And then we went to Vietnam, where we did the same thing. So that film is called This is what I did a TEDx. I was invited to do a TEDx talk about it. It's called Breaking Their Silence, Women on the Front Line of the Poaching War. And we came back, and as you mentioned, we won, I think, every film festival. We ran 17 in a row. Like best documentary, best director, best producer. We were just winning. And then COVID hit and shut us down, as it shut a lot of things down.
Wow. It's really impressive. Obviously, you've had just an extraordinary career, and your work in so many ways speaks for itself. We're thrilled to have you here today. We need to talk about this difficult topic, though, related to your new film. And I suppose we can find the silver lining in this, but tell us about Open Secret, your new project.
Yes, I get very passionate about this, so I will apologize ahead of time. Feel free to dial me back. I feel very fated to have told this story, because I was living in Los Angeles, and I never intended to leave at Los Angeles, but the next thing I know, I'm just driving across country with a friend, and I moved to North Carolina. I had been here I'd settled here for 3 days. I was renting before I bought a place, and this project was shared with me. And at first I thought, I came here for a break. I don't think this is a project I want to take on. I knew it was going to be deep, and I'd just come from a couple of dark projects. And so what I did was make the commitment to the woman who was sharing the story with me that I would go to Wilmington and meet these 2 protagonists, one of whom was a good friend of hers, to hear more from their perspective what this story was about. So I could drive to Wilmington, which is a beautiful beach city. And I met 2 extraordinary gentlemen, the Reverend Dante Murphy and Professor Clyde Edgerton. And they told me that this story started out that there had been widespread systemic discrimination in the school district that they had been exploring, but that upon further exploration, what they found out was there had been child sexual abuse going on in the schools for decades. And the kicker was everyone knew about it. And that's how it's got its name, Open Secret. It was not like the brilliant journalists that are in Wilmington doing phenomenal work there. I include them in my film because it's not like I broke this story. They were breaking it, but no one was being held accountable. And And the reason that I got so excited about meeting them at that time was because despite decades of corruption that had allowed for the child sexual predators to permeate the district, this small group of people decided to unite and challenge this corruption, which was so brave, so brave. They went up against a lot of firepower. And so it became a story about courage. It was a David and Goliath story about uniting, challenging it, and then watching their success and filming their success. Now, it's easy for me to say I filmed their success. This has been a 4.5-year project that I've been on. I've never been on a project this long before. So within that success, there have been some massive mountains that they had to overcome and some very deep, dark valleys, excuse me. So the film really is about the courage to face challenge. The courage to challenge something in your community that isn't working, despite this being detrimental potentially to your own self. And that's what inspired me. So you had mentioned it was a troubling subject matter, and it is. But what I want, if all anyone took away from this conversation was the following statement, I will have done my work here. Predators rely on us to look away. And that just landed for me. Like, I will not enable a predator. So what I want people to understand is that sometimes they say, well, if you do nothing, you're not really taking a side. You are taking a side. You're taking the predator's side. So did I answer your question?
Yes. It's really a profoundly difficult thing to talk about, but I think you have found that silver lining, right? You found the courage.
Yes.
Right. To highlight the strength of a couple of people to work on exposing this problem and bring it to an end. That is inspiring, despite the fact that the problem they're exposing is heartbreaking. So
it is. I want to say something that just came to mind. So Professor Clyde Edgerton is he's retired now, but when we first met him, he was at the UNCW teaching English, and he's also a novelist. He's very well known in the area. He's a wonderful musician and artist. He took this on his own, and it damaged his social standing. It was such a challenging thing. That the moment in the film where he says, "I by myself failed," which is not a word that comes easy to him, because this is a very accomplished man. He was introduced to the Reverend Dante Murphy, and the first thing the Reverend said to him was, "Nothing gets accomplished by I. If you're not a we, that's how you get accomplished." Which so in many ways, he was the nucleus for this group to band together and say, yeah, we may be small, but we're mighty, and we have strong values on our side. They all have a very strong moral compass. And at the end of the day, this was about child safety. Nothing else mattered. And so that we the people coming together again landed so strongly for me. And their courage, I can't wait to their courage needs to be witnessed. And I cannot wait to share what we have revealed, because it has been a very long journey, but it will be very worthwhile.
Yeah, this really is inspiring. I want to, it's a rare opportunity in some ways for folks to have an opportunity to invest in a film project with someone of such great caliber, such great experience. Why did you want to raise money from the crowd instead of your customary phalanx of wealthy Hollywood investors?
I love this question, Devin. That's a brilliant. Thank you for asking me that, because there was a misconception, though there could be a misconception, that this is a North Carolinian problem. It isn't by any small stroke of the wheel a North Carolinian problem. It is a problem that happened in North Carolina, and it's also happening across the nation. So to get the community behind this and to have them say, we acknowledge this happened and we will not let it go by. We are going to take this and we're going to make something of it. We're going to clear our decks, which they haven't had since. They haven't had a predator step forward since they got rid of the last person that was forced to resign under this. situation. And so to have the community come behind it and say, you know, this is ours, we're cleaning it up, this is not a North Carolina problem, I thought that was really important to lead with, because the film, when it's finished, is going to go across the country, and it's going to be a conversation starter to a movement. And then the movement is to end abuse in all schools, right? Not just North Carolina. It just happened here. It was extreme, and it'll be a cautionary tale, and it will prevent children being traumatized moving forward.
And allowing people everywhere to invest in this film is a way of helping to maximize your audience, maximize the impact, maximize the reach.
Exactly.
Brilliant. Yeah. Well, listen, everyone, I'm here today with Kerry David. She is a phenomenal filmmaker. She's working on a new project we've been talking about, and it's available to invest in on WeFunder. We're going to take a break now, and when we come back, we're going to talk to her about her superpower. So stick around. You don't want to miss this.
You can get in on the ground floor to help fix the climate crisis for as little as $100. Pause now to scan the QR code to get started, or visit s4g.biz/raisegreen. You can be a green at Raise Green.
Want to learn from the world's great change makers? Find your superpower. Subscribe to the Superpowers for Good newsletter at superpowersforgood.com. Make your strengths into superpowers that will change the world. Join the super crowd today. Superpowers4good.com.
Hope to raise money from the impact crowd. Good investors are as interested in community, social or environmental impact as you. Connect with Funding Hope, an SEC-registered FINRA member crowdfunding portal, to learn how to raise capital from the impact crowd. Scan the QR code now.
Welcome back. We're here today with extraordinary filmmaker Kerry David, and we've been talking to her about her latest film project. It's an amazing project, Open Secret, an opportunity you can invest in on WeFunder. But we're going to shift gears now and talk to her about her superpower. So stick around. Kerry, you really have had a truly extraordinary career.
Thank you.
Working for Paramount, working for Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. Holy cow!
Yeah, yeah.
You know, what a great way. And then, of course, you built on that. Your career has blossomed since then. That wasn't the peak, the pinnacle. Right?
I thought it was going to be.
So, yeah, it's tempting to see that. Here's the question: what is your superpower?
Okay, so this is going to be hopefully an interesting response to this, Devin, because people, when I'm interviewed, continually say to me, "You're fearless, you're fearless, you're fearless," but I'm not fearless at all. So I think my superpower, if I have one, is that I will lean into things that scare me. So I may appear fearless to other people, but I'm not. Trust me, I feel the fear, but I'm never going to run away from fear. So I will lean into fear. So perhaps my superpower is that I lean into fear.
That is, that's brilliant. It's brilliant. I think, courage isn't so much the absence of fear; it's coping with it, right? And so you're doing that, leaning into your fear, demonstrating great courage. Obviously, in so many ways, everything you do is an example of you manifesting that superpower. Can you share with us a particular story, an instance when you felt like that was really you living out that, stepping into that, leaning into your, facing your fears?
I'll be honest with you. I think the first thing that comes to mind was on my last film, and we were supposed to leave South Africa and film in Uganda. And 2 days before we were leaving, 3 Britons were kidnapped by the militia. Their driver was murdered. They were horribly abused, but I do believe they ended up, oh no, actually I think they were murdered. I think all 3 of them were murdered. Sorry, it's been like 6 years, and we were supposed to fly out the next day, and I had to think. I wanted to go, really wanted to go, but I had a crew that I had to think about. It's a very small crew, and I was really scared about, what if I don't do this? Am I going to miss something crucial for the film? Which is why we came, because Africa is obviously by definition not a safe place. It's not why you go. And at the last minute, I made a decision to go to switch, and we found 3 incredible conservationists in Vietnam, and we went there. But I was scared because for a minute I was pushing through, thinking, no, we'll go to Uganda. Like, we're not going to be scared of these rebels. We have a film to shoot. So we went to Vietnam. And I think 2 weeks after we came back from filming all together, there were 2 Spanish filmmakers, 2 men that went on the very similar journey geographically through Africa. And they were murdered. They were unfortunately murdered. And we were home safe in America by then. But it was all around that there was a lot of fear that I felt like I had to push through. And I'm really glad I didn't push through in that case. I'm glad that I pivoted. But I think that came up because I was wrestling with my courage. I was wrestling with, am I not being courageous? Am I being scared? Or am I being thoughtful and safety conscious for my crew? So I like to look at it that I was being safety conscious for my crew.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't make a film alone, do you? So that was a profoundly wise choice. You know, all of us face fears, and boy, you know, that's me, right? I'm constantly coping with my fears and insecurities. How can we learn from you to face our fears and overcome them, deal with them, act on it despite them?
That's a great question. So let me see if I can answer this in a way that is palatable for somebody who is maybe fearful. I would say, let's look at the consequences of not honoring your moral compass. Is that when you are faced with something that is frightening to you, and I don't mean that your life is on the line, obviously, on people risking their lives, but every time you don't do the right thing, and only you know what that is for you, what the right thing is, but every time you don't do the right thing, the next time you're faced with it, it's a little easier not to do the right thing. And then so forth. It's a little easier not to do the right thing. So I would urge you to be courageous in the moment when your life is not on the line, when it maybe makes you a little nervous, but you know that it's the right thing to do. That's courage. I just interviewed Tim Kennedy, who's got a bronze star for valor. He's a Green Beret. He's in the film. He's MMA ultimate fight champion. You know, that is next level courage. And I'm not asking people to be Tim, although I encourage everyone to meet him because he's wonderful. It was a wonderful interview. What I'm just saying is, and this is a topic that I've been exploring on and off screen in Open Secret, which is, what does it take to be courageous? And I keep going to the consequences. It's like, what are the consequences if we all stop being courageous? You know, if we stop with like, well, it's not my child, so I don't care. And I don't even want to say like, well, one day it might be your child, because that shouldn't be enough. It should be enough that a child is in danger or a child needs you. So be courageous for that child, regardless if you have children or if you worry that one day it might be your child. It's not about that. And yes, as it relates to children and Open Secret, that's where I'm focusing, but you could take this out in any subject. The next time you feel a lack of courage, but you know that the morally right thing to do is to go against it, try it. What's the worst thing that could happen? You end up helping somebody and you start feeling more confident about yourself.
Brilliant. I really appreciate that advice. I think everyone at some point feels fear, and at some point, most of us can acknowledge that fear of something, whether it's heights or a big challenge, stopped us from doing something we wonder if we might have been, wish we had done instead. So I really appreciate you sharing.
Can I add to that? Because when you said that fear of heights, I also have a fear of heights, and I thought I got to get over this fear of heights. So I was in Australia, and they had bungee jumping, and I thought, well, that's going to do it. If I bungee jump, then I won't be scared of heights. I'm still scared of heights. I'm also scared now of bungee jumping. It was awful.
That's great.
It was awful.
It was awful.
I thought I was so brave. I didn't make a sound. And the photo, my mouth couldn't be louder. I screamed so loud.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I hear you. Hey, listen, as we wrap up here, I wonder if you take just a minute, tell people quickly how they can learn more, connect with you, and invest via WeFunder.
Thank you. I would love for you to take a look at our WeFunder page. It is WeFunder.com/open secret. Anything you want to know about the film is on that page. And if there's more you want to hear about on the page that's not on the page, you can email me. I am at producer kerrydavid@gmail.com. And if you're interested in my philanthropic work, which is just protecting endangered wildlife in Africa and the communities that they impact, then you can reach me at kerry@overandaboveafrica.com. And the website is overandaboveafrica.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being with us. We wish you every success in the great work that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Devin, for this lovely opportunity. It was so great to finally meet you. Thank you.
All righty. Let's do some good.